Alright, good morning everyone. Grab your steel toes and let's get to work here. Update on what I'm now going to call Weapon Z. We had a few parts come in from my last video that I broke, so I've now replaced the vehicle speed sensor that's mounted on the back side of the diff cover. The JB weld on this did hold, and it seems pretty firm, so I'm going to just set that part aside for future use if needed as a spare part. I did get another differential cover. You can see here the JB weld cracked. As I mentioned, it did go through a couple of garage shifts, no problem, but the first pull away from a stop sign, this popped right here. And I guess I could have just built this area up more. But moving forward, I'll probably get this cleaned up and see if I can find a local welder that could just fix that up so that I have a spare one of these, maybe to get set up for a dual bushing on the rear diff cover here. I've seen some adapter plates that can bolt to this, or maybe get something welded on. We'll see. Anyway, that's all installed. I drove it for about 4 days with this crack in it. There was a bit more play in the rear, but I really just drove it like a granny. Just really light on the throttle. Took my time accelerating and everything. Pissed some people off, but I don't care. Now that the new bushings are in, everything feels really smooth. It really tightened up some of the shifts actually. And yeah, really happy with the result. That previous bushing was well beyond worn out, and it drives a lot nicer now. A bit more firm feel with stepping on the gas and everything. It's just not flexing as much. A little update for what's to come in the future. Got a Getrag 250G coming. This is out of a 2004 Z4. Just starting to pile up some of the parts. This literally came with just the transmission, so I got to source the shift linkages, the throwout bearings, which some of those come with clutch kits. So I haven't decided whether I'm going to go solid flywheel or just stick with the dual mass fly on the OEM standard. And then the pivot bushing is a plastic of some sort, and there's an upgrade brass or stainless that I've seen, so I'll probably replace that. Have to source the slave clutch cylinder, and then also the master cylinder. Gotta move between my bikes here. And then I've already got the clutch pedal box. I found that at a local salvage yard a couple weeks ago. Just pulled it out of a car, and that pretty much just replaces the clutch box or the pedal box that's already in the vehicle. Same mounting points. You just have to put the master cylinder on there for the clutch and run those hydraulic lines, which I think there's already provisions for it. The other thing that I need to figure out is cross member. Can I use the automatic transmission cross member? From what I can see in real OEM, no. There's a different one because the length of the gearboxes between manual and automatic is different. So where that cross member mounts is different. And then the overall length of drive shaft that I need changes also between automatic and manual. So I'm going to do some measurements under the car and see what length I need, because there's a various amounts pending automatic, manual for the Z4 SMG, and then also varying engine displacements, because I think on the Z3 we also had that 1.9 liter 4-cylinder with the Getrag 250, so that may have a different size drive shaft available as well. So moving on, I've got an update to the wheel and suspension fitment. As you can see, I have updated my wheels to the Style 68s, which I really enjoy the look of those on this vehicle. This is a staggered setup, so the rears are an inch wider than the front. The rim, I'll get into the fitment of the rims and tires in just a minute, because I want to take a look at some measurements here. So initially, for my ride height, I had 658 millimeters in the front left and 653 millimeters on the front right, which the target for the 17-inch wheels with sport suspension is 660. So I'm within 2 millimeters on the left and within 7 on the right, which the tolerance on this, from what I could find, was plus or minus 10 millimeters. So I'm within that, a little off side to side, but being that typically I run the car with sitting in the left seat, maybe it needs a couple more millimeters. I'm gonna see how it settles. I think it's still settling in, so I've only put about 500 miles on it at this point. And then in the rear, we've got 575 millimeters on the left and 571 on the right, with a target of 578. So I'm within 3 on the left and within 7 on the right. So we're getting pretty close. Now that I got the new wheels fitted, I may make one final adjustment on the rear. I think at this point I'm going to leave the fronts where they're at. Another point of discussion on the fronts, the wheel clearance on the inside to this shock collar, adjustment collar, it was very tight with the 16-inch wheels, the OEM ones. I only had about 1.5 millimeters space between the tire and this collar on the left side, and 2 millimeter clearance on the right side, same measurement with a 16-inch wheel. Now with the new wheels, they have different offsets, which I'll talk about in a minute. I've got 11 millimeters clearance between the tire and the shock collar on the left side, and then 11.5 millimeters on the shock tower on the right side. So I'm pretty comfortable with that distance. Before, when I was 1.5 and 2, I was considering wheel spacers, which I had a bit of an experiment going on with that. I had some ordered. I couldn't get them for like 2 weeks. They were delayed for 2 weeks for shipping. So in the meantime, I had gone to the auto parts store and picked up this universal plate. It's just under 8 millimeters, just to get myself some more clearance to the tire. I had some struggles with this because the BMW wheels are wheel-centric, meaning that the wheel centers off of this ring right here. With the 8 millimeter spacer, that doesn't leave much lip here to actually locate the wheel. And actually, on the inside of the wheel, you'll see here's the mating surface, and then there's a chamfer here. Well, this chamfer lip back to where the rim would actually locate on that hub shoulder is recessed 8 millimeters in. So you can see here with this lip being, I measured it out to 14 millimeters from the mating surface to this edge. If I put an 8 millimeter spacer in there, which I did, it only leaves you 6 millimeters of shoulder left, which if that chamfer is 8 millimeters deep, the hub-centric alignment doesn't work at all because it's not long enough, it doesn't protrude far enough to actually get into the wheel. So with the slop in this, and then also the slop in the wheel, I tried to fit and refit several times, tightening and retightening in the air, on the ground, partially loaded with just the lug bolts. And I could get it close, but I was getting a lot of wheel vibration, right around 55 miles an hour. So that was not a long-term solution. It was fine for driving around town. It didn't seem to bother it too much. There's still a bit of wiggle in the steering wheel, but overall, I didn't really feel safe with that as a final solution. So this is what I had. the 5mm coming from Raceland with a 5mm spacer, also specifically designed for this hub diameter, which I believe is 72.6mm. Fits on there nice, just a little bit of play in that. But also, if this is only 5mm thick out of the 14mm shoulder, that leaves me 9mm. And if that chamfer is 8, I might get a little bit of overlap, just a millimeter based on my measurements. Is that enough to locate it? Probably not, but I don't know, it's an option. The other option, if I actually did need the wheel spacer, if I was still running the 16-inch wheel, that I would consider is Turner Motorsports makes a replacement cap, dust cap. They call it a hub extender, and I believe it actually replaces this cap so it fits snug in there based on the measurements in here, and it actually extends this hub-centric surface out another 5mm, so you can actually get into the wheel using some wheel spacers. Another consideration is the lug nuts. All right, the OEM lug nuts are 25mm, which I measured from the bottom of this chamfer to the end, which works fine for stock wheels, but once you get spacers in there, that's going to eat up more of this space, and you're not going to have enough engagement for it to hold torque, and it's just not going to be safe for cornering. All right, so with that, what I did is I bought some extended wheel lug nuts. Only problem with that is on the fronts, there is a dust cover on the back side of this that covers, I think it's to cover the ABS encoder wheel. And actually, I don't know if you can see it, but if your lug bolts are too long, the end of the bolt actually goes into the dust cover and it won't rotate. So what I did was I took a measurement to the dust cover and then to the best I could do to the back side of this, the hub where the threads are, and then the thickness I had of the wheel and the spacer. And I just cut this extended one down was 40mm. I just chopped the end off to make it 35mm, and that cleared everything with the 8mm spacer. The other option, if you're going to be running wheel spacers and you're going to be changing wheels and tires a lot, is a stud conversion. So there's stud conversions where this stud just threads right into the the hub, and then you've got lug nuts instead of lug bolts. And you can get these in varying lengths depending on how many spacers you're going to be running or anything like that, and that's a much safer option. The one end gets Loctited. These have, you can get bull nose, or I think these have an Allen key on the end, so you can get them properly torqued and everything. So I have those. Not sure I'll need them because the new wheels fit a lot better. Going into the wheels and tires, like I said, I was moving from a 16 to a 17. You can see a little bit difference in the amount of tire wall that I've got now. These are both 225 width tires. You can see the stock is 225 50R16, so this is the tread width in millimeters. This is the percentage of that width that you have in sidewall, and then R is your rim size, your 16. So on the new ones, let's see, where's that number? There it is. 225, 45, 17. Because the wheel itself is larger, you have a smaller percentage of the tread width to get the overall same diameter, which is what you want to not have any changes in your vehicle speeds. And then also all-wheel drive cars can have issues if you have it different in the front to rear or ABS. they can play with the new systems and cause some trouble. So some other sizing stuff that you're looking at when it comes to wheels and tires is the width of the wheel, and you'll see it printed on the wheel usually. So 7J by 16. So this is a 16-inch diameter wheel, and it's 7 inches wide. And then this IS 46, that's the offset. So if I go over to the new wheel, this one is actually on the inside. It's 7.5 wide, 17 diameter, and the offset is 41. So there seems to be a lot of confusion about these numbers, and people don't really know what they are. Just looking for these wheels online, people just list wheels for sale, and they don't list any of the important information with them to actually make an appropriate decision. So some of the important numbers that you're looking for, like I said, wheel width, diameter, offset, if they're hub centric, what this center is, and then the bolt pattern. These are 5 by 120, and that's measured across here. That measurement is 120 millimeters, and there's 5 of them. All right, so the offset number, which on this one is 41, and that is in millimeters. What that's referring to is this mounting surface in relation to the center of the wheel in this plane. So let's say the center of the wheel is right here. The mounting surface is 41 millimeters to the outside. And why that's important is the further out or positive this number is, the further in the inside of the wheel will be to the vehicle, into your suspension and potentially control arms and things like that. So that's a consideration. It's going to affect the outside flushness of your tire to the outside. So the more positive it is, the further in the wheel will sit, and the further recessed the tire will be from your outside surface. Yeah, I think that's about all the information on that. I can get a picture of the other side here. Actually, I'll just post a picture. I think I took a picture of it out in the sun. It looks like I can still get the rear tires out a little bit just to fill out those wheel wells, but it's much more aggressive now. I went with a 255. Let's see here, where's the size? 255/40 R17s on the rear. The OEM suggestion is 245 40 R17s for this rim size. I just went with the 255/40 because that's actually a better relationship for the tire sidewall height. It closer resembles the front. With the 245, this should, from a visual standpoint, look like a smaller tire on the back, and I wanted to balance it out front to rear. So that's where I'm at with everything. Like I said, next I'm starting to collect the 5-speed conversion parts, and that'll likely be the next update. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.